Chapter 720, A Life of Honesty and Integrity Without a Blemish. On the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower, there was a commotion. You demon cultist. Do you think you can get information from me? I have never bowed to the demonic sect in my entire life. Even if you kill me today, I won't talk. If you want to torture me, bring it on. Whatever inhumane torture you have in mind, it will only strengthen my resolve. I would rather die than yield, and I will never bow to the darkness. Yinshaw stared at the middle-aged man with a white beard. Senior, why bother? We haven't forced you to go against your righteous beliefs. We just want Tuimo who provided you with information. Ridiculous. You are a mere demonic sect. You think I will tell you about the information I received? Wouldn't that harm the one who gave me the information? But they might not be a good person. They could also be a villain with blood on their hands. We just want their information, Yinshaw said seriously. Are you trying to say you're good? Impossible. This is a demonic sect. The Heavenly Note sect is wicked through and through, and everyone here should just die. I abhor evil, and I will never assist the wicked, the middle-aged man said. I'm unmarried and have never taken a disciple under my wing. I have no one you can threaten me with. I don't have any weaknesses for you to exploit. My life has been one of honesty and integrity. Demons have no power over me. Are you saying that your entire life has been without a blemish? Yinshaw asked. Yes, my whole life has been one of honesty and integrity without any stains. If it wasn't the case, would you be asking me this now? The middle-aged man asked. Yinshaw frowned. She then turned and left. Once Yinshaw left, the man looked at the other 5 people and clasped his hands in greeting. I am Zhong Yong from the Sunset Immortal sect. I came to attack the Heavenly Note sect, but it seems that you are all experts here. I'm Zhuang Yuzhen from the Divine Corpse GD sect. Heavenly King Hai Luo from the Heavenly River region. I'm Nangong Yu, a saint bandit. I'm Master Wu Yang of the Heavenly Tower. I'm Yin Zichen of the Mountain Sea Sword sect. Zhong Yong was astonished. The backgrounds of each of these people were quite extraordinary. Even someone from the Mountain Sea Sword sect had been imprisoned. Is your life truly that immaculate? Nangong Yu asked. Of course. There's nothing that can threaten me. I've long set aside matters of life and death. With the cruelty of the Heavenly Note sect, how could I yield? Zhong Yong said. Are you going to say something, Heavenly King Hai Luo? Asked Yin Zichen. Zhuang Yuzhen and Hai Luo hadn't spoken yet. They were curious as well, but they remained silent. There were many people pulled down from their mighty status here. It always made them sigh. Jiang Hao returned to the courtyard and heard voices inside. Beast, I don't see anyone picking the peaches. Is senior brother Jiang planning to leave them here for senior sister? Don't worry. Take them. Even that senior sister will have to respect me. Really? I never lie. I'm a beast of integrity. Jiang Hao walked into the courtyard and saw Xiao Li holding peaches in her hands. With a mouthful, she said, Senior brother. She dropped the peach in her hand. In her panic to catch it, the other peaches in her hand tumbled down too. Xiao Li was at a loss. She stood there and looked at Jiang Hao. You're back. Jiang Hao asked as he picked up the peaches that had rolled toward his feet. I brought you a gift, senior brother. Xiao Li suddenly remembered the gift and took out a box of pastries. I brought something for you too, master, said the spirit beast. The spirit beast took out some meat jerky. It's human jerky. It's incredibly delicious because the meat in it used to be a rich family. Jiang Hao accepted the gifts gratefully. Xiao Li's gift seemed quite ordinary. It wasn't poisoned this time. That was unusual. After taking a bite, he found it to be decent. It would have been more interesting with a touch of poison, like Xiao Li's usual souvenirs. After eating a piece, he gave the rest to Xiao Li. Judging by how she stared at it, she seemed eager to try them. Thank you, senior brother, Xiao Li said excitedly as she accepted the pastries. Jiang Hao then turned his attention to the jerky. Is this really human jerky? Yes, from a rich family, the spirit beast said. When I appeared in front of those people, they cut a piece of themselves and handed it to me in respect. Can you speak in human language? Jiang Hao sighed. On our way back, we encountered some bandits, said the spirit beast. It seemed they were trying to steal from a rich family. After I arrived, both the bandits and the family were quite polite to me. I just asked for a portion of the beef jerky they had. They said the beef jerky is from cows they reared themselves. It's quite delicious. Jiang Hao took a bite. It was indeed delicious. He then handed the rest to Xiaoli, who jumped in joy. Thank you, senior brother. Jiang Hao sat down on a chair and asked them to clean up the fallen peaches first. Did you encounter anything on your way? He asked. Yes, I encountered thieves. They stole the gift I had prepared for you and disappeared. Later, senior sister bought me a replacement, Xiaoli said. Jiang Hao was surprised and asked for more details. After hearing the whole story, Jiang Hao requested to see the dragon pearl. He noticed that some of its power had been depleted, and it didn't seem as vibrant as before. Suddenly, he remembered Gui's words. Someone had provoked Xiao Li at that time, and she might not have been a match for them. The dragon pearl had protected its master, and it had instantly incinerated those two people. Xiao Li assumed they just ran away. Jiang Hao chose not to say anything but asked Xiao Li to keep the dragon pearl safe. He also asked about Hong Yuye. He didn't want to know if Xiao Li had said something to offend her. After that, he decided to prepare himself to reach his peak condition. There were still many things he needed to get ready for. However, before he could return to his preparations, someone sent a communication talisman and asked him to come to the Lawless Tower. He sighed. As expected, they are looking for me for something. I just don't know what it is this time. With a sigh, Jiang Hao decided to go to the Lawless Tower in the middle of the night because he didn't have his appraisal ability yet. Later, at nightfall, Jiang Hao left the courtyard and headed straight to the Lawless Tower. This time, Yinshaw had specifically come down from the higher floor to find him. It seems we have to rely on you again, junior brother, she said. Jiang Hao was right in thinking that it was something urgent. Without senior sister Yinshaw's involvement, he wouldn't have been able to leave the dungeon. It seemed that everyone at the Lawless Tower had been eager to have him released. Although he wanted to help, he couldn't make any promises. Senior sister, you know that my abilities are limited, so I can only do my best. Chapter 721, Your Master, what happened? Jiang Hao asked. He would do his best as promised, but he needed to know what was actually going on first. Do you know about the recent attack by the Sunset Immortal sect? Yinshaw asked. I do. Jiang Hao nodded. He was sent out by the sect during that time, so he knew about it. It had been dangerous, but the pavilion master had arrived in the nick of time and helped them out. The sect had managed to push the enemies back. But what was the connection between that and why they needed him here? We caught a person. Usually, we wouldn't need to pay much attention to someone like him, but we found something. This person is very stubborn, so we weren't able to get him to talk, said Yinshaw. Are you running out of time? Jiang Hao asked. Yes. The person might escape at any time, so we need information from him as soon as possible, Yinshaw said. Jiang Hao nodded. He didn't say anything much. Everything would become clear when he met the person. It was almost time, and the daily appraisal ability would be available soon. He could then get the general information about the prisoner. On the 5th floor, Yinshaw didn't follow Jiang Hao in. Jiang Hao walked alone and headed toward the cell. Seeing this place made him a bit emotional. In the past, there was only Zhuang Yuzhen here. He used to be so unruly. More than 10 years have passed since then. Now, there were more people near. The others who used to be unruly were now better. Zhuang Yuzhen's temperament had also changed greatly. Jiang Hao felt as if he had traveled back in time. Sometimes time passed unknowingly, but when he thought back, everything felt like it had happened just yesterday. This time, everything was silent. Even Heavenly King Hai Luo was unusually quiet. It was really strange. After a while, Jiang Hao saw the people locked up in the cells. There were the usual Zhuang Yuzhen, Heavenly King Hai Luo, Nangong Yu, Wu Yang, and Yin Zichen. There was another newcomer, Zhong Yong. Friend, nice to meet you again. Have you considered my offer? Wu Yang asked with a smile. Bow down to me as your master, and I can teach you anything you want to learn, Yin Zichen said. Evil demon. Zhongyong sneered. Zhuang Yuzhen and Heavenly King Hai Luo didn't speak. Nangong Yu was very curious about what Heavenly King Hai Luo would do this time. Before, Jiang Hao always visited willingly, but this time, they knew he was here for Zhongyong. Zhuang Yuzhen and Heavenly King Hai Luo were waiting for Jiang Hao to make a move. Jiang Hao just bowed to them and then walked to the front of Zhongyang's cell. What are you looking for? Zhongyong asked. Jiang Hao looked at him and felt that this person was full of righteousness. There was no hypocrisy in his words. This was a good person. He was at least better than most people. Senior, in the sect, you probably aren't very likable, are you? People who were too good weren't very popular. He didn't want to be such a good person, because it was not easy to survive. He had some principles, but that was all. I'm an old man who has lived with honesty and integrity. What do you mean by likable? You think flowery words of a demonic sect can deceive me, said Zhongyong in an icy voice. Jiang Hao felt that this senior was very stubborn. He sensed that his divine ability was back. He appraised the old man. Zhongyong, elder of the Sunset Immortal sect. His cultivation has been absorbed and disintegrated by the lawless tower. He is left at only the middle stage of the primordial spirit realm. He is straightforward and uncompromising, with a deep hatred of evil. He regards eliminating demons and evil spirits as his mission, and wherever there is evil, he will not hesitate to sacrifice himself to save people. He has conducted himself with integrity and righteousness throughout his life. Only when he was young did he like to read secret books in the room. This is something he is reluctant to mention for the rest of his life. Now that those books have been sealed and locked in a room, he is unwilling to let anyone know about them or himself. He attacked the Heavenly Note sect because he received a secret letter from Feng Hua. The information surprised Jiang Hao. He was a righteous and honest person but had a small secret. The person who had made him attack the Heavenly Note sect was Feng Hua. What is her purpose? Did she send him here to test the limits of the Heavenly Note sect? It's not the first time, either. Dan Qingzi was here last time for the same thing too. Does the Lawless Tower want me to investigate Feng Hua? Jiang Hao did not think about it anymore. He didn't know anything for sure right now. Moreover, with the Heavenly Note sect investigating the matter, Feng Hua wouldn't dare to be so bold. What are you looking at? Zhongyong asked. Jiang Hao looked at him. Senior, you seem to be very easy to talk to. Do you think you can trick me into saying something useful by pretending to be nice? I have acted with honesty in my life, and I will never do anything that goes against my heart, Zhongyong said. I heard that the person you're protecting is a notorious villain, a ruthless murderer, and a heartless manipulator, Jiang Hao said seriously. Do you think he'll believe what you say? Do you think I'm a 3-year-old? Zhongyong said righteously. The others also looked at Jiang Hao. They felt that this old man wasn't anything special, after all. Jiang Hao didn't mind them and looked at Zhongyong. He raised his hand and beckoned gently. Although you may not trust me now, senior, you might be willing to believe me after I say a few words. As soon as they saw the beckoning, King Hai Luo and Zhuang Yuzhen sat up straight. It was finally happening. Nangong Yu also paid attention. Jiang Hao had made the gesture. Whenever he beckoned to the prisoners like that, they submitted to him. Wu Yang and Yin Zichen were puzzled, but they realized that something had changed. King Hai Luo and Zhuang Yuzhen watched with an unwavering gaze in fear that they might miss it. Yin Zichen and Wu Yang, who didn't know what was happening, looked at each other and felt that the crucial moment had arrived. Zhongyong snorted but didn't move. Jiang Hao didn't care. He just smiled. Then, a voice reached Zhongyang's ears. Only he could hear them. Jiang Hao said only 4 words. The disdain on the old man's face disappeared. It was replaced with shock and horror. Senior, do you believe me now? Asked Jiang Hao. It's impossible. Zhongyong glared at Jiang Hao. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Jiang Hao took a step back. It seems that you are still unwilling to trust me. In that case, I'll take my leave. With that, Jiang Hao turned and left. Yin Zichen shook his head and sighed. He had thought he was going to see something extraordinary, but it turned out to be nothing. However, shortly after, Zhongyong slapped the cell door and shouted, "No, I haven't finished speaking yet. Come back. Come back." But Jiang Hao showed no intention of turning back. He walked out of there. "I believe you. I said I believe you." Zhongyong shouted hysterically as he watched Jiang Hao leave. "Stop him. Quick. Someone, stop him." Seeing the sudden turn of events, Wu Yang and Yin Zichen looked at each other in surprise. They were very curious about what Jiang Hao had said to make the old man lose his composure. "Now, has your master too?" said Nangongyu as she looked at Zhongyong. Chapter 722. By Yel's goodwill I said I believe you. Come back. I have something to say. The shouts continued, but Jiang Hao had no intention of staying. Since his task was complete, there was no need for him to stay back. Moreover, if he stayed, wouldn't it give them a chance to go back on their word? It was better to keep his attitude and thoughts unknown so that he could leave them with doubts. The next time he visited, the person would be more careful and forthcoming. Otherwise, the old man might assume that there was no problem as long as he said something, even if it was a lie. The matter with Zhongyong was urgent. Senior Sister Yinshaw and the others would soon talk with him and calm him down. Such a person probably wouldn't stay here for too long. However, it remained uncertain whether he would survive after returning to his sect. Previously, he was respected because of his strong cultivation realm, and no one dared to provoke him. But now, with only the primordial spirit realm, it was uncertain whether he could survive. That was how the cultivation world worked. A person might be reaching the heavens one day, but the next, they might be falling into the pits. After leaving the lawless tower, Jiang Hao went straight back to his residence. By now, things should be fine. He wanted to cultivate peacefully, tend to spirit herbs and go back to his usual routine. It would be great if he could live peacefully for a few more years. Xiao Li had already returned to her house. The spirit beast lay sleeping at the edge of the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and drooling. Occasionally, the sounds of insects and birds could be heard around. Jiang Hao felt content. It had indeed been a very tiring few months. First, there was Senior Chen Chen and the blood pool, then the mining due to the attack, and the encounter with the Shenyuan sword. He was captured upon his return, forced to participate in Senior Sister's hunt, and further compelled to confront Yin Wei. In just a few months, he had encountered numerous incidents and formidable enemies. Now, he finally felt peace when he sat on a chair under the tree. Jiang Hao walked into his room and decided to sleep. He slept till dawn. When he woke up, the distant chirping of birds and sunlight streaming in from the window greeted him. Jiang Hao stood on the balcony and breathed in the fresh morning air. There's much less spiritual energy here today. He felt nostalgic. The spirit herbs from Bai Yi had dispersed and led to a decrease in the spiritual energy here. The great battle of the sect had completely ended and left behind a mess to deal with. Every branch had its own issues, including the spirit herb garden, for which Jiang Hao was responsible. Cheng Chou couldn't handle everything, and now, it was his turn to take over. However, such matters did offer a sense of relief. Constant fighting and killing were not what he wanted to do. Jiang Hao leaped down and headed toward the courtyard. He watered the heavenly fragrance Dao flower and other spirit herbs. He then lifted the spirit beast by the collar. He carried the drowsy beast and walked to the garden. On the way, the spirit beast didn't wake up. Jiang Hao threw it into the river. The beast was startled awake. It thought it was drowning. Jiang Hao remained silent and continued walking forward. The spirit beast asked, "Master, did someone drag me into the water?" Jiang Hao glanced at it but didn't say anything. Instead, he asked, "Middle stage of the Golden Core realm?" The spirit beast had advanced swiftly. Its speed of progress was not further behind Jiang Hao's own. Who knew what realm it would ultimately reach? Friends in the cultivation world are aware of my esteemed identity as Lord Beast, so my cultivation doesn't stop. When it's time to advance, you can also mention my name, Master. My friends in the cultivation world won't trouble you. Jiang Hao chuckled. He felt that Cheng Cho might actually take the spirit beast's name during his advancement. It couldn't hurt to try. What if it really worked? At the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao found Cheng Cho and began asking about the situation. The spirit herb garden was gradually returning to normal. Many people had gone to rest, and soon they could resume their usual activities. However, the issues were not entirely resolved. Many questions still needed to be addressed. Jiang Hao looked at the list and found over 50 individuals, all of whom he needed to visit personally. All right. Jiang Hao took the list and intended to visit them when he was free. Among the people, some were in the Foundation Establishment realm, others were in the Golden Core realm, and some Primordial Spirit realm. There were hardly any above the Primordial Spirit realm. It was very rare to find someone beyond the Primordial Spirit realm. They usually assigned the task of the garden to juniors at the Golden Core realm. After handling the spirit herbs, Jiang Hao visited some disciples. The Foundation Establishment realm disciples were very easy to talk to. As long as the follow-up compensation was in place, they were willing to let things go. They understood that what had happened was entirely unavoidable and didn't want Jiang Hao to worry about it. By afternoon, the matter was settled with all 5 Foundation Establishment realm disciples. Jiang Hao didn't visit them empty-handed. He gave each of them a 10,000 swords talisman. It wasn't that he couldn't resolve things without such gifts, but as a gesture of goodwill, especially considering his higher cultivation realm, it served as a means to appease them. The next day, Jiang Hao visited 7 Golden Core realm disciples. 2 of them hadn't returned. The remaining 5 had a cultivation realm lower than his and were also quite easy to talk to. He also presented them with talismans. On the 3rd day, he visited 10 Golden Core realm disciples. 3 were on missions, and 3 had been missing for a long time. Jiang Hao was quite moved. The spirit herb garden had been concerned that these individuals might cause trouble, yet, in the end, many of them didn't cause any issues at all. This was the way of the cultivation world. Nobody knew when someone close to them might disappear. Getting involved with primordial spirit realm disciples was troublesome for Jiang Hao. Previously, Cheng Cho had been preoccupied because many of those people hadn't returned. Now, most of them had come back. He would have to face these seniors one way or another. He had a lot on his plate, with no suitable seniors to help him out. Just as he was about to go, senior sister Lian Qin came looking for him. She said that some of the primordial spirit realm seniors had gone to their side to discuss the matter of the spirit herbs. They believed they could handle it, so Jiang Hao didn't need to make the trip. The unexpected help was surprising. It seems that Bai Yi is really making a gesture of goodwill. Soon, Jiang Hao was even more surprised to learn that even senior sister Lian Qin wanted to make up for the missing spirit herbs. This meant that Bai Yi's technique would come into effect again. This made Jiang Hao quite curious. What was Bai Yi up to? But there didn't seem to be any harm in it. He could only wait and watch. The matters with the spirit herb garden were done. After that, days passed nicely. Half a year passed by swiftly. The next year, around early April, Jiang Hao visited the Lawless Tower again since he didn't have any other issues that needed his attention. He didn't have any gatherings to attend either. Over the course of 6 months, Jiang Hao grew increasingly calm. The restlessness brought about by reaching the late stage of the return to Void Realm was gradually subsiding. If he didn't stabilize his progress after such a rapid improvement in his cultivation, it might lead to trouble. So, he rarely ventured outside and seldom earned spirit stones. He simply engaged in routine activities. Over these 6 months, the things he saw remained unchanged. The only difference was that the natural beauty of the mountains had become more alluring. This brought joy to Jiang Hao. However, on this day, the spirit beast ran to him and informed him that a group of people wielding swords had arrived in the sect. Cheng Cho also told him that the investigation of the ordinary non-cultivators had yielded results. Chapter 723, Shongan arrives. The arrival of the Mountain Sea Sword sect had no impact on Jiang Hao. Being the disciples of an immortal sect, they wouldn't suddenly cause trouble unless they had knowledge of the Earth Extreme Silent Pearls activity. As Jiang Hao hadn't detected any activity from the pearl, it was unlikely that they had either. The Earth Extreme Heart-Devouring Pearl granted an advantage. Since there was no change in that pearl, it was improbable for the people of the Mountain Seasword sect to visit the sect. As for the matter Cheng Cho was investigating, it had happened a long time ago and involved an ordinary non-cultivator. He and his family had self-destructed. What was the situation in that person's family? Jiang Hao asked. It was a family of 16, with only 2 children left alive. The rest were all killed, Cheng Cho said. Jiang Hao's face remained unchanged, and he calmly asked, how were they killed? It happened a few days before the incident in the spirit herb garden. Some people openly killed and mutilated them, Cheng Cho said. Jiang Hao frowned. After a long silence, he finally asked, what about the 2 children? When I found them, one had a broken leg, and the other had a broken arm. The injury was likely inflicted by the assailants. They seemed to want the children to barely survive, Cheng Cho said. Jiang Hao crouched down to tend to the spirit herbs. I see. What happened after that? I took them to a place affiliated with the Heavenly Note sect, where they should be able to live as ordinary people, Cheng Cho said. Who was responsible for the attack? We still don't know. I remember that before he died, he wanted to go home. Jiang Hao said. Yes, he wanted to go home. I was planning to ask the seniors to help him once they returned, but the opportunity never came. Cheng Cho sighed. Has the person been allowed to go now? Jiang Hao asked. Not yet. Considering the damage to the spirit herb garden, Cheng Cho hesitated. Only their clothes remain, right? Jiang Hao asked calmly. Yes. Cheng Cho nodded. Send them back, Jiang Hao said. He could make this decision, and no one would trouble him for it. As someone who wasn't even an outer sect disciple, nobody would want to offend a golden core realm. Cheng Cho nodded and went to handle it. Jiang Hao felt quite emotional. It wasn't just him. Others were trying to make a simple living in this terrible world. They had concerns and things they cared about. They could do a lot for a meal. However, being in the demonic sect, no matter how much they tried to avoid danger, they couldn't entirely evade it. They were at the mercy of fate and were unable to control anything that happened in their life. Jiang Hao couldn't do much in the face of these realities. Jiang Hao continued tending to the spirit herbs. Keeping a stable state of mind was essential for advancement. Immense power would make one arrogant. Living life calmly and rationally was the best approach. The future still held promise. In the southern region, in the Hidden Cloud Prefecture, a man in a black robe was walking briskly. He only walked through less populated paths and avoided crowded areas. He stopped under the shade of a tree and looked ahead toward the distant mountains. At that moment, his ugly face was visible under the black robe. We're almost there. Shong-an, who had come from the east, was following his heart's desire. He wanted to find a person and ask something. His master had once advised him to let go, cultivate the heartless Tao, and break through the immortal ascension platform. However, a woman had found him later. What you love is crucial to you, so why should that become a burden? Shouldn't that be the driving force behind your ascension? Why not let it help you break through the immortal ascension platform? She also said, don't cultivate the heartless Tao. Don't cultivate the compassionate Tao. Cultivate your inner path. Act according to your heart's desires. The heavenly Tao is right under your feet. Just take one step, and your path to immortality will be clear. He understood this and had come here. He pledged to take this step before returning. The Heavenly Note sect. Shong-an muttered to himself. He had encountered many things on this journey and helped others as much as he could. The journey hadn't been easy, but he had finally arrived. He would be meeting more people later, so he put on a mask to avoid reacting emotionally due to others' slander or criticism. He had experienced defamation and understood how it felt. Once acted upon, it was bound to lead to regret later. He glanced back as he walked. Someone had been looking for him, or perhaps someone was following him. Among them, there was a senior with a very strong ability. Despite having noticed his trail several times, the person didn't approach. However, They were leisurely following him from behind. Shong'an was grateful for this. He let out a sigh and continued to walk forward but hesitated about what identity to use when visiting the Heavenly Note sect. Logically, since they were a demonic sect, he should use a demonic identity. However, he was concerned that this might lead to unnecessary complications. Should he go with the identity of a disciple of the Clear Sky School instead? After walking for a while, Shong'an let out a faint sigh. In the end, he decided to use the identity of a disciple of the Clear Sky School. While the name of an immortal sect might command reverence, it was less likely to lead to unnecessary troubles. As he crossed over a mountain, he encountered two individuals, a man and a woman. The two of them appeared to be quite intimate and were probably a couple. One of them had a cultivation realm similar to his and exuded a stable aura. The other one was only in the middle of soul ascension realm, but she seemed strange. It was as if that realm wasn't her limit. It was possibly due to cultivation-related injuries. Since she didn't deliberately conceal her cultivation, they noticed him as well. After a short while, the two people approached him from a distance. The man said, "I am Mu Longyu, and this is my wife, Mi Lingyu. We were traveling together and didn't expect to encounter a fellow cultivator here." Mi Lingyu greeted him too. None of them expected that they would meet such a powerful individual while traveling. "Im Shong'an from the Clear Sky School," Shong'an said truthfully. Since he intended to visit using this identity, he didn't hide it. "Clear Sky School?" Mi Lingyu was astonished as she looked at Shong'an. It was none other than the extraordinary genius who had been causing a commotion recently. Mu Longyu found it hard to believe as well. They had randomly encountered a person who had such a background. "Fellow cultivator, where are you headed?" Mu Longyu asked. "The Heavenly Note sect," Shong'an said truthfully. "My wife and I are also headed that way. It just happens to be along the same route," Mu Longyu said with a smile. During their journey, Mu Longyu asked Shong'an why he was going to the Heavenly Note sect. "I'm going to meet a friend," Shong'an said politely. "We are also going to meet a friend and ask him about some matters," Mu Longyu said with a smile. "It seems we were fated to meet." They were going to find Heavenly King Hai Luo, whom they had saved before, only for him to get imprisoned in the lawless tower again. It infuriated other heavenly kings. Mi Lingyu nodded in agreement. Indeed, King Hai Luo needed to be taught a lesson. Chapter 724. The demonic sect is quite straightforward. Jiang Hao missed the peaceful life he had lived in these past few months. He never expected that the arrival of the Mountain Sea Sword sect would affect him this much. Today, he received an order from his master to go meet someone. At first, the instruction didn't seem that important, but he later found out that someone from the Mountain Sea Sword sect was looking for him. This took him by surprise. Shortly after, Jiang Hao arrived at his master's courtyard. There were only a few people present, including his master, Ku Wu Chang, and 3 others. One of them looked somewhat familiar, while the other 2 were entirely unknown to Jiang Hao, but they seemed quite powerful. "Master." Jiang Hao bowed. "Middle stage of the Golden Core Realm?" Zhuge Zheng was astonished and found it somewhat unbelievable. He had just recently advanced to the Golden Core Realm himself, thanks to the fortuitous encounter with the Shenyuan sword. Otherwise, he would still be at the early stage of the Golden Core Realm. Jiang Hao looked at him and remembered something. This man owed him some spirit stones. "Friend Zhuge," Jiang Hao said, "when did you reach the middle stage of the Golden Core Realm?" Zhuge Zheng asked. "A while ago. I was lucky," Jiang Hao said awkwardly. He hadn't expected that Zhuge Zheng would focus on his cultivation progress. It was something he preferred not to talk about. But Zhuge Zheng hesitated but didn't say anything more. Being lucky didn't always result in such rapid advancement, but everyone had their own unique opportunities. This kind of rapid progress was indeed quite remarkable and not as apparent at first glance. "These are the spirit stones I owe you, including the interest. It totals up to 3,000. Zhuge Zheng handed over the spirit stones. Jiang Hao felt delighted. "Thank you," he said and returned the item Zhuge Zheng had left as collateral. He thought it would take much longer for him to retrieve his spirit stones. First, he had to be strong enough even to visit the Mountain Sea Sword sect. However, to his surprise, Zhuge Zheng paid him the spirit stones after just over a decade, which was a stroke of good fortune right now. The Mountain Sea Sword sect was located in the northern region, and the Divine Corpse sect was also in the north. While the Heavenly Note sect had a cooperative relationship with the Divine Corpse sect, there was still a grudge between the two. The northern region had already become a dangerous place, and there was no reason to go there. Jiang Hao thought that he would have to wait until he was strong enough to visit the Mountain Sea Sword sect and retrieve the spirit stones. Little did he expect that Zhuge Zheng would visit him and return it. "Then, can you show us around?" Zhuge Zheng asked. The four of them walked along the riverside in the Cliff of Broken Hearts. "What's your name?" "Jiang Hao," Fu Dongxue asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "You don't need to be so formal with us," Fu Dongxue said. Although he agreed, he continued to show the same level of respect as before. He didn't dare to be arrogant in front of a senior like her, especially when she was someone from the Mountain Sea Sword sect. "Do you have any Corpse Realm flowers here?" Zhuge Zheng asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "Can we take a look?" Fu Dongxue asked. "Sure." Jiang Hao nodded. He took them to Mu Chi's house. The flowers were planted there. The flowers had shoots and leaves for now, but no flowers bloomed yet. They didn't know when they would bloom. "It is indeed the Corpse Realm flower." Fu Dongxue examined the flowers and frowned slightly. "What's wrong?" Jiang Hao asked. "It's about to bloom," Fu Dongxue said. "About to bloom?" Jiang Hao was surprised. "You went inside the Corpse Realm with someone before, right?" "Who was it?" asked Zhuge Zheng. "The Divine Corpse sect," Jiang Hao said truthfully. "In that case, the people from the Divine Corpse sect will be here soon." Zhuge Zheng smiled. Jiang Hao thanked him. He hadn't expected the Corpse Realm flower to bloom again. In that case, he might also try to see if he could enter once again. There was a subsidiary realm inside the flower with a subrealm seal. However, this time, the blooming of the Corpse Realm flower might stir up some waves. The arrival of the Divine Corpse sect had caused quite a commotion before. Then, Jiang Hao remembered the conversation he had overheard in the Corpse Realm, which he still didn't fully understand, even though he had learned the language of the Heavenly Spirit tribe. "Maybe I can try asking Nangong Yu or Gui later." Nangong Yu was a member of the Heavenly Spirit tribe, and Gui had someone with her who knew a lot about the Heavenly Spirit tribe's history. "Do you know about the Lawless Tower?" Zhuge Zheng suddenly asked. "I know a bit." Jiang Hao nodded. Jiang Hao remained vigilant. He was unsure of their intentions. "Is it possible to get people out who have been captured?" Zhuge Zheng asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "Really?" Zhuge Zheng and the others were somewhat surprised. They were just asking casually and intended to consult with other people as well. After all, they would be staying here for quite some time. "Could you explain the process in more detail?" Fu Dongxue asked. "We can also help with any cultivation difficulties." After some thought, Jiang Hao began explaining the difficulties he was facing in cultivation, which were related to Cheng Chou. Although he knew the answers to the questions, he wanted to see if there were more advanced insights. "Is this a Foundation Establishment Realm cultivator advancing toward the Golden Core Realm?" Fu Dongxue asked. Someone with those questions usually lacks natural talent. However, it's not necessarily a bad thing. They are following a path of solidifying their foundation. While it's not bad, it's also not ideal. To advance to the Golden Core Realm, there's another crucial element: spiritual agility, also known as mental energy. I can teach you a breathing technique called Sword Intent Breathing Method. It's an energy cultivation method that stimulates the body but can cause pain for those at the Foundation Establishment Realm. These pains can be challenging to alleviate. Still, it can revitalize one's foundation and increase the chances of advancing to the Golden Core Realm. She took out a book titled Sword Intent Breathing Method. Jiang Hao was surprised. He thought this would be a simple exchange, but she gave him something valuable and provided insights on how to improve his chances of reaching the Golden Core Realm. Actually, Entering the lawless tower isn't a big deal. It is not life-threatening. Rescuing someone from there is quite easy, Jiang Hao said. It's easy. This surprised the three of them. They had learned that Yin Zichen was here and had entered the lawless tower. It was said to be a place for detaining serious offenders. They hadn't expected that it would be so easy to rescue someone from there. Yes. It's easy, especially if the person isn't a target. As long as you have enough spirit stones, the lawless tower is more than willing to release them, Jiang Hao said seriously. Just spirit stones are enough? Zhuge Zheng asked. Yes. Jiang Hao nodded. Who should we contact? Zhuge Zheng asked. Elder Baiji of the White Moon Lake, Jiang Hao said. Is it possible to meet her directly? Zhuge Zheng asked. Yes. What do you call the process here? Zhuge Zheng asked. Redemption. The three of them were quite surprised. Redemption? The demonic sect was indeed very straightforward. This was beneficial to them. It meant that they could simply conduct a transaction. For example, if they couldn't obtain information themselves, they could entrust the demonic sect to inquire on their behalf in exchange for spirit stones. After that, the three of them bid farewell to Jiang Hao and began to plan their own affairs. Jiang Hao felt relieved. It seemed that they wouldn't keep an eye on him. He had also received the sword intent breathing method, which he could give to Cheng Chou. The Golden Core realm was within his reach, after all. Back at his residence, he took out the leaf of concealment. It might come in handy during his trip to the corpse realm. Chapter 725. Looks like there is a need for another interrogation. The corpse realm flower is about to bloom, and Shongan is coming. I wonder if it's just a coincidence. Jiang Hao mused. With Shongan's imminent arrival and the sudden blooming of the corpse realm flower, Jiang Hao couldn't help but wonder about it. However, predicting the flower's blooming cycle was difficult, and Shongan had set out several years ago. Jiang Hao sighed and decided not to think about it for now. There were no answers yet, and no one, not even Xing, knew Shongan's purpose. Nonetheless, he knew he wouldn't be able to enter the corpse realm casually this time. To enter, he would need to shield and hide. The leaf of concealment was the best choice. He had appraised it a long time ago. Leaf of concealment temporarily shields the user and prevents people from spying within a fixed range. Once withdrawn, it cannot be used for 3 days and will automatically deactivate when the spiritual energy is exhausted. It cannot move beyond its range. The main limitation was the fixed location, but for Jiang Hao, this wasn't a significant issue since he possessed the Heaven Secret's hidden talisman. As long as he was in a fixed location, he could use the leaf. If he had enough spiritual energy, he could keep the leaf active, and the range was sufficient for him to hide. However, the leaf was ineffective against the Hong Yuye. She was exceptionally powerful and hard to predict. The Heavenly Essence Soul Modeling Mirror could detect anything. But apart from these two exceptions, it should protect most other forms of detection. Half a year had passed, and there was no news from Feng Hua or Yang Shong. It was uncertain what they were thinking. Hai Ming was still in the sect, and they still had occasional interactions. It seemed that Hai Ming had lost interest in him, perhaps because the matter of the ancestral dragon's heart was no longer disputed. As for the fish, it hadn't returned since the last time it left. Jiang Hao couldn't do much about it. Regarding Feng Hua, it wasn't going to be pleasant. Before, she was the one acting from the shadows, but now, he was in control. Unless she gave up her avatar, her mood wouldn't improve. That should be enough for now. Playing with the emotions of others came with consequences. However, getting her to reveal everything she knew was impossible. She might even launch a counterattack. But what Feng Hua did had nothing to do with him, so there was no need to worry about any kind of retaliation. At the White Moon Lake, Baiji sat in the rain pavilion. "Friend, you've come unexpectedly. Is there something you need?" Baiji asked as she looked at the three visitors. Zhuge Jin was also seated, and he felt somewhat awkward. "We don't have to address each other as peers. Only some seniors address each other as peers in our sect. You are a senior. We would not dare to be insolent." Baiji understood who he was referring to, But that senior insisted on lowering their status themselves. Now that this visitor was suggesting the same, she couldn't agree, nor could she disagree. Then let's not concern ourselves with titles. What brings you here, friend? Baiji asked. We're here for someone in the Lawless Tower, a former junior disciple, Zhuge Jin said. Baiji breathed a sigh of relief. They weren't here to cause trouble, after all. Previously, the Divine Corpse sect had tried to create conflicts, but fighting an immortal sect was a different matter entirely. An immortal sect was in a league of its own, even if there was a great distance between them. If an immortal sect decided to act, it would be catastrophic. The person is indeed in the Lawless Towers, Baiji said. We don't intend to rescue him, nor do we wish to interfere, Zhuge Jin said hurriedly. We're looking to obtain some information from him. So, all you need is information? Baiji asked. Yes, that's correct, Zhuge Jin said. They didn't plan to rescue the person, and whether he lived or died wouldn't affect their plans. Their main objective was to retrieve something important. We'll pay for the information, and if he can't provide the answers, we hope to meet with him, Zhuge Jin said. Very well. Baiji agreed. This matter didn't pose any major issues. Getting the person to speak was the real challenge, especially considering that whatever the Mountain Sea Sword sect wanted would be far from ordinary. Yin Zikan's betrayal was likely related to this. After seeing off the Mountain Sea Sword sect members, Baiji left the Rain Pavilion and headed to the highest point of the Heavenly Note sect. At the 100 Flowers Lake, she saw a woman in a red and white dress standing by the edge of the lake. She didn't want to interrupt, so she quietly waited behind. Time passed slowly, and Baiji remained patiently silent. It was only when the bright moon hung high in the sky that a calm voice finally said, "Do you have something important to discuss?" Hong Yuye walked back to the pavilion, where a steaming cup of tea awaited her on the table. She picked up the teacup and took a sip. I received information from Zhongyong of the Sunset Immortal sect that suggests Feng Hua's true self may be in the vicinity of their sect. We've already initiated an investigation, but it's progressing too smoothly, so we're concerned it might be a decoy. In addition to that, we've found signs of the person's recent activities. It indicates that their mental state has been affected. It appears that someone else is targeting this person, Baiji respectfully said. What have they been up to lately? Hong Yuye asked. They have been operating within some smaller sects. They seem to be searching for something. It's somewhat peculiar because, despite appearing discreet, it feels like they're intentionally drawing attention. There's a good chance it's to try to lure someone out, Baiji said. Hong Yuye frowned at the rising steam from the teacup. And then, we are still observing the situation and are not taking action until we are sure. They seem to be aware of it. If we can capture the main body, we may learn many things, Baiji said. Other than that? Hong Yuye asked. Azure Mountain is also regaining its strength, and it appears that a new power is being infused, likely from overseas sources. From some traces, it may be the work of one of the overseas heavenly kings. Baiji hesitated. Due to the recent matters within the sect, we haven't fully investigated this yet. Hong Yuye remained silent and gestured for Baiji to continue. Jiang Hao has disappeared again, and I suspect he may be on the verge of advancement once again. It probably includes a particular opportunity, Baiji said. Hong Yuye glanced at Baiji. It seems he has good talent. Baiji lowered her head. She still didn't understand what the sect master wanted with Jiang Hao. Would she pay attention to him if he had poor talent? Chapter 726. There may be someone behind Xiao Li. Baiji lowered her head and was momentarily unsure how to respond. She had never personally confirmed Jiang Hao's talent, but based on various factors, it seemed he was undoubtedly extraordinary, at the very least not as ordinary as mentioned in the sect's records. Even if his innate talent was truly average, there had to be something exceptional about him, considering the individual who highly valued him. However, since the sect master asked, she naturally had to answer. If we only consider the innate talent as recorded by the sect, Jiang Hao can be classified as above average. However, given his speed of advancement, he falls somewhat short of being at the top. Moreover, he must have had his own opportunities, and his methods are unconventional. His master recognized his abilities, but their relationship was strained because he was on the suspect list, which prevented him from receiving genuine teachings. The person behind him is paving the way for him, so this might not be his limit. It's just that we have been unable to find any relevant evidence, Baiji said. Hong Yuye listened quietly. She casually picked up her teacup and took a sip of tea. After Baiji's explanation, she said, "What about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower? We are currently keeping an eye on everyone who came here for the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, but they haven't made a move lately. They seem to have lost interest as if they have nothing more to worry about." Nonetheless, Zhuang Yuzhen still appears to be concerned and has requested to meet and see the flower to help with teaching some individuals, Baiji said. It was only right to let the lawless tower use whatever means they had to get information. But the heavenly fragrance Dao flower belonged to the sect master, and only she had the authority to decide who got to see it. Go and ask the person who planted the flower. Yes. Baiji nodded. This outcome was expected, as both Zhuang Yuzhen and the heavenly fragrance Dao flower were connected to Jiang Hao. If he agreed, there wouldn't be any issues. It would also make clear if Jiang Hao had any ulterior motives. I just heard from the people of the Mountain Sea Sword sect that the Corpse Realm flowers are about to bloom. The people from the Divine Corpse sect will definitely visit again. Should we continue to cooperate? Hong Yuye glanced at Baiji. Do as you see fit. Baiji nodded. It seemed that the sect master did not want to concern herself with these matters. She went on to report Yin Zikan's situation, and once again, the sect master let her handle it as she saw fit. News has arrived from overseas that the end of all things seems to be doing something in the southern region. We have already begun to arrest them. If we capture someone useful, we can send our spies. This way, we can find out who is behind Azure Mountain and what their objective is. Recently, the Great Thousand God sect has also shown interest. Since it's challenging to locate Feng Hua's true self, maybe we can start from that sect, Baiji said. After that, she noticed a transparent object falling in front of her. It was a belt. Baiji understood that it was meant to be delivered to someone. Continue the investigation, Hong Yuye said calmly. Baiji hesitated for a moment. Jiang Hao has a junior sister named Xiao Li. I have mentioned her before, and I have noticed that her strength is surprisingly high. She refers to Jiang Hao as her elder brother. Should we investigate her to find out who might be behind Jiang Hao? Is there any suspicion of her as an undercover agent? Hong Yuye asked. No. Baiji shook her head. In that case, there's no need to be concerned with her, Hong Yuye said. Baiji nodded. She realized that the sect master was mainly concerned with Jiang Hao, and there was no need to investigate those around him. In the Sky Cloud Island in the overseas region, Shangguan Qingsu walked through the mansion. She headed toward a quaint palace in the front. She entered the palace, where 3 elderly figures with exhausted faces were waiting for her. Did you say there's a way to suppress the curse? The leading elder asked. He had aged considerably, and his cultivation had gradually dwindled. It was all due to the curse. The higher one advanced, the more dreadful the curse became. After all, it took decades for a single session of seclusion, so who could complete it within 3 months? When they heard there might be a way to suppress the curse, they instinctively doubted it but still had to inquire about the situation. Shangguan Qingsu planned to return much earlier, but she was delayed by matters within the sect. Now, she needed someone to assist her because she couldn't influence the person in question on her own. However, the influence of a family was different. Yes. I've seen it personally, Shangguan Qingsu said earnestly. What is the method? The lead elder, Shangguan Chicheng, asked. The method lies within a person. Which person? Shangguan Qingsu fell silent. She stared at the 3 people. They understood her intentions. What do you want? I have only one condition. If there are spots available, I must have one, said Shangguan Qingsu. No problem. Shangguan Chicheng nodded without hesitation. The other 2 elders also had no objections. Now, tell us who this person is, they said. Smiling San Sheng. Smiling San Sheng? I've heard his name before. Does he possess such an ability? In any case, he told me he's smiling San Sheng and claims to have this ability. Where is he? He should be in the south. The three elders fell silent. The south was very far away. It would be incredibly challenging to locate this person. It would be like finding a needle in a haystack. Do you have more information? Another elder asked. Shangguan Qingsu shook her head. Finding him in the south is harder than searching for a needle in the sea. However, if you want to secure a spot, you have to do something more. So, go look for him, Shangguan Qiqing said. All right. Shangguan Qingsu nodded. She turned back at the door. If I find him and also find out what can convince him, do you think I'll come back to tell you? Shangguan Qiqing didn't respond, and Shangguan Qingsu left. Shangguan Qingsu wanted to use them, and they could do the same in return. In the face of interests, there were no grudges. Shangguan Qingsu couldn't be certain that she would return, but they could catch up to her if they were just a step behind. It was about who would have the upper hand. However, could smiling San Sheng truly suppress their curse? This was still uncertain, but they were willing to take the gamble. Shong An, along with Mu Longyu and Mi Lingyu, arrived at the Heavenly Note sect. We're here. Do you want to go in together? Mu Longyu asked. Sure. Shong An didn't refuse. By the way, who are you here to see? Mi Lingyu asked. A friend named Jiang Hao. I have some questions and want to get answers from him, Shong An said truthfully. Both Mu Longyu and Mi Lingyu were taken aback. Jiang Hao? Mu Longyu didn't know much about him, but Mi Lingyu was well aware of Jiang Hao's formidable reputation. He was a dominating figure on the 5th floor of the Lawless Tower, but she had never expected that Jiang Hao would know a legendary disciple from the Clear Sky School. Chapter 727, quite a grand display for a moment, Mi Lingyu felt tongue-tied. Jiang Hao seemed to know so many people. Logically, a Golden Core Realm cultivator shouldn't be acquainted with so many powerful individuals. Now, there were 2 heavenly kings who recognized him, and they didn't dare to underestimate him. Even the extraordinary genius from the Clear Sky School knew him. With just that, he had already surpassed countless other Golden Core Realm cultivators. Moreover, the fact that he could navigate the 5th floor so easily indicated his uniqueness. He must have a formidable figure behind him. There must be someone behind him who must have passed him the information that she and Mu Longyu had a child together. Heavenly King Hai Luo, Zhuang Yuzhen, and the others in the Lawless Tower couldn't escape his control. Do you also know him? Shong An asked her. Yes, we do. Mi Lingyu nodded. We've had a few encounters with him in the past. Shong An nodded. Who are you here to see? An old friend. One of the heavenly kings, said Mu Longyu. He didn't hide it. Being forthright and honest was the best approach. Shong An nodded. He seldom left the sect and had very limited knowledge of the outside world. Most of what he knew was about the northern regions, where he had grown up. In the past few years, he had traveled more than he had in the previous 200 years. Soon, they arrived at the large formation. A middle-aged man landed in front of the formation. Greetings to the 3 esteemed guests. May I ask why you've come here? The auras emanating from the 3 of them were far beyond what he could face. So, he had to show proper respect. I am Shong An of the Clear Sky School. I wish to meet someone here, Shong An said courteously. Mu Longyu remained silent and waited. Upon hearing this, the man guarding the formation was taken aback. Please wait here, the middle-aged man said hastily and hurried away. After a short wait, an elderly man followed him. When he saw Shong An and Mu Longyu, he broke into a cold sweat and immediately ordered someone to notify the branch master. Esteemed guests, please follow me. The branch leader is on his way. In the meantime, is there anything I can assist you with? The old man said hastily. He sensed immense pressure. Although he didn't know who the masked person was, he knew they were anything but ordinary, especially when Mu Longyu stood beside him. This meant that the masked person possessed incredible power. You don't need to inform the branch leader. We only wish to meet someone, Shong An said politely. Jiang Hao, as usual, was watering the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He watered all the other spirit herbs as well. The spiritual energy had returned to its past glory, and perhaps even exceeded it. This was likely due to Bai-Yes cultivation technique showing progress. Recently, he had visited the valley outside the 100 Bones forest, and the other party's cultivation hadn't changed. He was still at the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. However, Jiang Hao had already advanced to the late stage of the return to void realm. Now, he didn't need to keep such a close eye on him and could afford to check in once every year or two. There were 2 individuals practicing the Bloodwish path, and Jiang Hao had glanced at them a few times. So far, they were still working on the introductory part of the technique. One of them was on the verge of crossing the threshold, while the other hadn't yet begun, and Jiang Hao wasn't sure when they would start. It was uncertain which of the 2 would advance further in the end. So, he continued to observe them. After watering the plants, Jiang Hao woke up the spirit beast and headed toward the spirit herb garden. While the members of the Mountain Sea Sword sect had contacted him, it didn't affect his daily life. He could continue with his normal activities as if nothing had changed. It had been a long time since their last gathering, which struck Jiang Hao as unusual. However, when he listened to the conversation between Gui and the others, it seemed they weren't worried about it. After all, there had been periods lasting half a year or longer when they hadn't gotten in touch with each other before. Occasionally, they would chat there, but they didn't discuss anything particularly important. They mainly talked about what they'd seen and heard. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao stopped thinking about it. "Master, look, there is a fish here." "My friend said it's good to eat fish in the afternoon," said the spirit beast. The spirit beast dove into the river and managed to catch the fish. Jiang Hao thought it was about time to reward the beast. In the past, he used to have treats to keep it happy, but now, it doesn't need so much. The spirit beast had to be rewarded properly, though. However, as he approached the garden, he suddenly sensed a change in the atmosphere. There were many more powerful individuals present, with members of the law enforcement hall standing nearby. Even Liu Xingchen was there, but he didn't come over to chat with Jiang Hao. He was just observing the situation. What's going on? Jiang Hao's heart raced. Everything seemed strange. The spirit beast also sensed it. "Master, I feel that the spiritual energy around here is not giving me any respect, and these people are not showing me any respect either. Is it because you're not working hard enough?" Jiang Hao paid no attention to the beast and walked inside. Since the people didn't stop him, it meant he could go in. What kind of person would warrant such a grand display? Jiang Hao was puzzled. He hadn't received any information, which was unusual. It was unexpected. The people from the Mountain Sea Sword sect who came to see him didn't act this dramatically. Who could be so influential? Jiang Hao approached cautiously. At that moment, Liu Xingchen walked over to him. "Senior brother," Jiang Hao whispered, "what's going on?" "Junior brother Jiang, you," Liu Xingchen hesitated. Jiang Hao could see from his reaction that this was somehow related to him. "Have I done something wrong?" Jiang Hao asked. "Not really, but someone asked to see you, and their aura is incredibly powerful, so we have to take it seriously." "Who is it?" Jiang Hao was genuinely surprised. So many people had come. It was no longer just about cultivation realms. The members of the Divine Corpse sect and the Mountain Sea Sword sect hadn't received this kind of attention. "That's a question for you to answer, junior brother," Liu Xingchen said. After that, he stepped aside to let Jiang Hao enter. The situation drew attention from everyone, which was something that Jiang Hao strongly resented. However, he had to brace himself to go in. It didn't feel right to turn back. As he entered, Jiang Hao saw his master in conversation with a black-robed man, who was explaining the details of the garden. The peak master of the law enforcement peak, Cheng Liu, was also present. What was most surprising was the man in the black robe. His presence emitted a kind of light that made people feel calm. It was impressive. Jiang Hao finally recognized him. It was Shong'an. At that moment, the man seemed to sense something and turned to look. He smiled warmly. "Friend Jiang, it's been too long." In an instant, Jiang Hao felt like he was bathed in the radiance of a sage. It covered his entire being. It was a profound sensation, as if the thoughts of an immortal were descending upon him. Shong'an was about to break through to the immortal ascension platform. Chapter 728, Conversation with Shong'an. Jiang Hao stood still as everyone looked at him. He felt as though there was a knife at his back. Shong'an was practically pushing him into a fire pit. But since things had come to this point, he could only do his best to respond. In the face of such a formidable figure, he needed to show respect. "Greetings, Senior." He bowed in greeting and dared not speak further. Instead, he waited. As an inner sect disciple, he didn't have the qualifications to voice his opinions. Shong'an gazed at the person in front of him. He seemed to have a lot to say. But he knew it wasn't the right time to ask questions. He politely asked Ku Wu Chang if he could go out for a stroll. No one objected. Ku Wu Chang told Jiang Hao to show Shong'an around the Cliff of Broken Hearts. Jiang Hao nodded in response. His master's instructions were symbolic, but everyone knew that Shong'an didn't come here to look around the Cliff of Broken Hearts. After that, Jiang Hao asked Shong'an if he would want to go out for a walk. Shong'an didn't refuse. It was only when the two of them disappeared from sight that Ku Wu Chang and the others breathed a sigh of relief. This person was truly extraordinary. They had heard of Shong'an's reputation. He possessed the sage's heart and was a prodigy of the Clear Sky School. He was often compared in status and power to the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. His importance was self-evident. As members of the demonic sect, they couldn't help but worry about someone like him. Jiang Hao walked along the riverside and occasionally provided information about the surroundings. He had been prepared for Shong'an's arrival many years ago, but he still didn't know how to face it. Shong'an's power far exceeded his expectations. It hadn't been like this before. "Is there no one here?" Shong'an suddenly asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "There are few people in that direction toward the mountain peaks ahead." This was a secluded path. Occasionally, people walked through this path. But most of the time, it was deserted because the spiritual energy here was very light. Only people who wanted some privacy came here. Shong'an's aura of sainthood had already shone through, and he was doing it intentionally. Even if it was from far away, someone would definitely notice. They would leave as soon as possible. Shong'an felt relieved. "Have you seen me before?" "I have." Jiang Hao nodded. He had seen the real Shong'an and understood his capabilities. It was remarkable that someone like him had not turned out evil. It was truly impressive. If it were him, he might not be as calm and generous as Shong'an was at present. "In that case, I'll take off my mask." Shong'an placed his hand on the mask. Jiang Hao gazed at him and soon saw the grotesque face appear beneath the mask. For him, who was accustomed to fellow cultivators, it was quite shocking. Although he wouldn't show it, others might not react the same way. There would undoubtedly be murmurs and whispers in private. If one felt inferior and resentful, it would be the beginning of an irreversible disaster. When they came to their senses, they would realize that they had killed many people around them. It would be a path of no return. But Shong'an didn't choose that path. Jiang Hao understood why Shong'an liked the charm goddess. It was not because of her allure. That had no effect on him. It was because she never reacted to his face. She even liked how he looked. For Shong'an, that was freeing. No wonder he had gone looking for her. Sometimes, Jiang Hao wondered what Shong'an would have done if Jiang Hao had been strong enough to kill the charm goddess. When he was mining, he had banished her countless times but never managed to truly kill her. She was powerful, and someone had prepared a backup for her, which made it impossible to kill her. There was another question. If Shong'an had rescued Charm Goddess, would he still provoke him? Would he kill her or not? If he did, would it make him an enemy of Shong'an? Jiang Hao came to a conclusion. He just wanted to live a peaceful life. "Did I scare you?" Shong'an asked apologetically. Jiang Hao was momentarily stunned. This person made him feel that Charm Goddess really didn't deserve a man like Shong'an. "No, Senior." He had been surprised, but he hadn't been scared. "I was supposed to die." Shong'an put his hand down from the mask. "Back then, did I see you?" Jiang Hao remained silent and didn't want to answer that question. I remember it was you, Shong'an said. I begged you to save her. Jiang Hao still didn't speak. It was true that he had been begged, and Jiang Hao had agreed. But he only agreed to reassure Shong'an. He had then sealed her away. There was no way he would actually save her. Shong'an didn't speak but continued walking forward. Jiang Hao followed him. They climbed the mountain and finally sat on a large rock at the edge of the cliff. Thank you, Shong'an suddenly said. Jiang Hao looked over with some surprise. You seem quite surprised, Shong'an said. Yes, a bit. Jiang Hao nodded. Why did you save me? Shong'an asked earnestly. Because I wanted to, Jiang Hao said. Is there no other reason? Shong'an asked. I just wanted you to live, Jiang Hao said calmly. Shankan was a Zood person, and what he had done had touched him. It was as simple as that. Shong'an didn't press further on the matter and simply gazed ahead. Do you know why I wanted to thank you? He asked. I don't know. Jiang Hao shook his head. He hadn't thought about it. Shouldn't I be thanking the one who saved my life? It's been many years since then. I have been very ungrateful, said Shong'an with a smile. You want to thank me because I saved your life? Jiang Hao looked at him in surprise. Actually, it's more than that. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have been taken away by my master, wouldn't have had my epiphany, and wouldn't be in my current realm, Shong'an said seriously. I was unwilling to take that step. I hadn't seen you yet. Me? Jiang Hao was puzzled. Wasn't it because of the charm goddess? In his understanding, Shong'an couldn't take that step because he was unwilling to let go of the charm goddess. But now, it seemed different. Yes. The reason I could join the Clear Sky School was because of you. So, I wanted to ask you why you did it and express my gratitude, Shong'an said. I see. Jiang Hao nodded slightly. After a pause, Shong'an said, I know you don't like little Mai. Then, why did you want me to save her? Jiang Hao asked. I didn't have any grievances against you. You seemed like a very reliable person, Shong'an said. You're not someone who could be easily influenced by outsiders. Don't you feel resentment toward me? Jiang Hao asked. I did. Shong'an nodded. I blamed you. But what right do I have to blame you? Without you, I would have died. It's just that sometimes I can't help but think, what if you had saved little Mai instead? Chapter 729, Breaking Through to the Immortal Ascension platform. Shong'an was still obsessed with the charm goddess. Jiang Hao wasn't surprised, but Shong'an didn't blame others for his own obsession. He did what he believed was right and allowed others to do the same. Is it really worth using your life in exchange for her freedom? Jiang Hao asked. Shong'an had almost lost his life in exchange for the charm goddess freedom. Shong'an looked up at the sky and smiled. Of course, it's worth it. Really? Jiang Hao still didn't understand. He didn't share Shong'an's thoughts and feelings. In his view, it wasn't worth it. Are you going to try to save her again? Jiang Hao asked. I can't get in anymore. Shong'an shook his head and sighed. I can't enter the corpse realm anymore. The last time was my final chance. So, even if I had to risk my life, I wanted to save little Mai, but in the end, I failed. He couldn't enter anymore. Jiang Hao was surprised. Was it due to his cultivation or his condition? It seemed to be an issue of his current state. Now, he was overflowing with momentum and on the brink of breaking through the immortal ascension platform. The light of a sage illuminated all around him, and it couldn't be suppressed anymore. His only choice was to move upward. He couldn't go back down. Have you given up? Jiang Hao asked curiously. I haven't, Shong'an said while looking up. His voice was calm. I won't give up. I kicked her back into the cave, and that mountain disappeared, Jiang Hao said. Shong'an hadn't seen what had happened after, but he should have been informed. I know. Shong'an nodded. I always knew. You've already been very kind. I also know you might have thought of giving her a chance. Little Mai loves causing trouble. I know you have been conflicted about everything until now. In the future, if you decide to take her life, you'll understand that there must be a reason. I'll understand. Jiang Hao looked at him and had a question he wanted to ask. If the charm goddess was somehow free, but she kept provoking other powerful individuals, what would Shong'an do? Although he was curious, he didn't ask. Such things might not happen at all. There was no need to trouble Shong'an with these thoughts or force him to provide answers. Feelings are truly complicated, Jiang Hao murmured. Yes, very complicated. But I truly like her, Shong'an said. After a moment of hesitation, he asked, do you have someone you like? No. Jiang Hao shook his head. What about someone you're close to? Shong'an asked again. Close to? Jiang Hao turned to look at him. What defines being close? Spending time together, experiencing various feelings when you are with her, going out together, and noticing the changes in that person. Most importantly, being with her, even in silence, doesn't make you uncomfortable, Shong'an said seriously. He spoke with a smile in his voice as if he recalled something joyful. Jiang Hao frowned as he could only think of one such person, a woman in a red and white dress. But he didn't think too much about it. He just lowered his head and remained silent. Shong'an glanced at him but didn't bring up the topic again. The wind blew past. There was no sense of urgency. They both sat there and enjoyed the serenity. The wind ruffled Shong'an's black robe, and his calm voice was carried by the breeze. I may have made you uncomfortable just now. Just now? Jiang Hao asked. When I came to see you. It seemed like you don't like to draw attention, Shong'an said apologetically. That's true. It made me feel a bit uneasy. Jiang Hao nodded. If he attracted a lot of attention because of that, it would be troublesome. No one had paid attention to him before, but now they might. Although he could resolve it, it was still an unnecessary disaster. I didn't know. I thought it might make things easier for you later on, Shong'an said. That was indeed true. Attention from a powerful figure could resolve many issues. However, there was still the risk of some ignorant ones trying to be reckless and trying something offensive. That would be unnecessary trouble. At first, I wanted to give you a gift, but now, it seems I can't give it to you directly. Shong'an looked at Jiang Hao. If you're willing, I can still give it to you privately. It's a kind of powerful opportunity. It will attract quite some attention. You'll also be seen by many people. If I don't accept it, what will you do with it? Jiang Hao asked. I'll give it to the Heavenly Note sect to use as they see fit. The amount one can comprehend will depend on individual aptitude, but it won't be as good as receiving it individually, Shong'an said. He then waited for Jiang Hao's decision. In truth, Jiang Hao didn't need the opportunity, but since Shong'an wanted to give it to him, he couldn't refuse. Sometimes, gifts had to be accepted. All right. Jiang Hao nodded. I'll choose the latter option. Don't you find it to be a waste? Shong'an seemed surprised. Jiang Hao shook his head. It wasn't a waste. It was the best option. If Han Ming could gain some understanding and get closer to being the top disciple, it would be even better. You are truly generous. Shong'an stood up and looked at the sky. I'm going now. Back to the Clear Sky School? Jiang Hao stood up. Yes. I'm going back to cultivate and reach a realm where I can forcefully enter the corpse realm to save little Mai as soon as possible. Shong'an's eyes were filled with determination. Jiang Hao sighed in his heart. Shong'an was still trying to find a way to save the charm goddess. Perhaps it wasn't that she was special, but rather, she had entered Shong'an's life when he was at his most vulnerable. After that, she had comforted him, and now, he couldn't let go of her. It was even more tragic that the charm goddess was sealed away, and the two were separated. Are you leaving now? Jiang Hao asked. Yes, right now. I've met the people I wanted to see and asked the questions I needed to. I am now done. It's time to go. I can't stay in one place anymore, Shong'an said with a smile. At that moment, the radiance emanating from him was exceptionally prominent. Jiang Hao had a strange feeling. Shong'an was like a dazzling sun. Do you know that I'm about to break through the immortal ascension platform? Do you know what that means? Shong'an looked at Jiang Hao. He shook his head. Then do you know what's in front of the immortal road? Shang-An's tone remained as calm as ever. The Immortal Ascension Stairway? Jiang Hao hesitated. Yes. The Immortal Ascension Stairway. Shang-An took a step into the air. With a single step, the Immortal Ascension Stairway appeared beneath his feet. The Immortal Ascension realm has a total of 9 levels. The first 8 are ordinary, Shang-An said, and took another few steps. He was now at the final level. Jiang Hao watched him in awe. At that moment, he felt as though Shang-An was about to break through the Immortal Ascension platform right in front of him. Chapter 730. Opening the Immortal Road and establishing immortal fate. At that moment, Shang-An was radiating a brilliant light. Jiang Hao watched in awe. The 9th level of the Immortal Ascension Stairway has its own name. It's called the Immortal Ascension Platform, Shang-An said as he took a step onto the Immortal Ascension Platform. He stood there steadily. I've spent over 200 years here, nearly 300 years. Now, I'm over 300 years old, and my master tells me that I should have taken this step before I turned 300. It would have been better for me. He says I missed an opportunity. Shang-An looked towards the sky. But for me, it doesn't make much of a difference. Maybe now is the most suitable time, he said. Jiang Hao watched as Shang-An became even more radiant. After a while, Shang-An took a slow step forward. Although it was a gentle step, when it landed, it shook the heavens and the earth. It was deafening. It was as if a hammer from the heavens had fallen onto the mountain. Crack. A crisp sound rang out as Shang-An's Immortal Ascension platform began to crack. The cracks spread across the staircase, and then, with a loud crash, it shattered completely. The dust surged like it had encountered a fierce wind and then merged into Shang-An's body. A scorching aura radiated from him, and a blazing white light shot up into the sky. Boom! The light pierced the heavens and made waves throughout the entire Heavenly Note sect. The world's colors changed as rainbow clouds responded to the light. In an instant, the explosion of radiance swept across the surrounding mountains and rivers. Most of the people in the Heavenly Note sect were unaware of what was happening. Jiang Hao was the one who felt and saw the most. He saw a path extending from beneath Shang-An's feet. Immortal energy spread throughout. This is called breaking through the Immortal Ascension platform and using its power to reshape it into an immortal road, Shang-An said to Jiang Hao. Then, he walked toward the sky without looking back. The path extended, and a powerful force met the sky. It seemed as though it was opening up and revealing the immortal road. Jiang Hao suddenly felt that he could become immortal as long as he followed Shang-An right now. He had an inexplicable understanding of the immortal road at that moment. The light began to shine and extended further and further as if to encompass the entire land. At the same time, Baiji in White Moon Lake also noticed the immortal road. She understood what was happening. The opportunity has come. Whether you can succeed or not depends entirely on you, said an ethereal voice in Baiji's ear. It was the sect master's voice. I've been waiting for so many years. Baiji was excited. She had been in this realm for a very long time. When the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment Cultivator had emerged, she had felt hope, but she had lacked an opportunity. Now, that opportunity had arrived. In an instant, a burst of light exploded from Baiji, and she soared into the sky. The pavilion master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion looked up at the sky. This was an opportunity, but it wasn't the right time for him. If a death hadn't happened 10 years ago, he clenched his fists as he thought about that and let it go again. Even if nothing had happened then, he wouldn't have caught up. This opportunity meant nothing to him. Outside the Heavenly Note sect, Baizhu walked with Qiao Yi. She had her hands behind her back and took large strides. Her main purpose for coming to the Heavenly Note sect was to find Yin Zichen. She had really put a lot of effort into finding him. First, she informed the Mountain Sea Sword sect about the information, and then she guessed that they might only want information and not him. After all, there was a peculiar relationship between the Mountain Sea Sword sect and the Heavenly Note sect. She wasn't entirely certain about this relationship, but she knew it existed. This way, there was a high probability that the Mountain Sea Sword sect would choose to take only the information to avoid straining their relations. This provided her with the opportunity to redeem Yin Zichen. She had plenty of spirit stones, and if the Heavenly Note sect wanted them, she would give them without hesitation. The Heavenly Note sect had a good reputation in this regard, and so far, there were no reports of anyone being deceived. However, she needed to be prepared for an accident. She had to be prepared if the Mountain Sea Sword sect wanted Yin Zichen. In that case, there was nothing she could do. Although she could try to compete with them, it would be too dangerous. Offending the Mountain Sea Sword sect was not a wise choice. It was better to find another solution. "Is he really here?" Qiao Yi asked. "Of course," said Baizhu. "You received the cultivation technique, didn't you?" "Would I ever lie to you, Auntie Qiao?" Qiao Yi nodded. The cultivation technique was indeed real, but she still couldn't fathom how the princess had obtained it. Ordinary people wouldn't have access to such things. Even the Heavenly Spirit Tribe members couldn't obtain it so easily. Boom! Suddenly, a beam of light shot into the sky. Intense radiance illuminated them. The light wasn't scorching. It was soothing. "What's happening? Do we have an opportunity?" exclaimed Baizhu. Feeling that it was beneficial to her cultivation, she became excited. Soon, the beam of light opened up into a path. Immortal energy followed suit. Qiao Yi was astonished. She was unable to understand what was happening. She originally wanted to ask the princess but saw the young girl, who was once smiling, slowly become serious. Her excitement was replaced by shock. The shock was followed by regret. "What's wrong, princess?" Qiao Yi asked with concern. Baizhu stared at the path. Her face filled with disbelief. "Auntie Qiao, we might have encountered a once-in-lifetime opportunity." Qiao Yi looked toward the distant path. She didn't understand what it was. She was more concerned about the princess in front of her. "Isn't that a good thing? What does it mean, princess?" Baizhu was anxious. She grasped Qiao Yi's hand and stomped her foot. "I can't hold on to it. Auntie Qiao, I've come across a once-in-millennium opportunity, but I can't grasp it. I'm still out of reach. Just give me another 100 years or even just 80 years, and I can seize this opportunity. It's an immortal chance that may not come for another thousands of years. It's slipping away just like that." Xie Dongnan was also nearby. He looked at the sky, where colorful clouds gathered. The immortal road was opening up. He couldn't help but laugh. If the elders of the sect see this scene, they'll cry. They never dreamed that junior brother Shang could open the immortal road and bestow immortal fate. As long as you have a sufficient realm and enough reserves, you can ascend to immortality with him. He then looked at the others. "Have any of you spent many years on the immortal ascension stairway without making any progress? Immortal fate has come." The others looked at each other in confusion. Who could possibly spend years on the immortal ascension stairway? If you miss this opportunity, you'll be missing a once-in-millennium immortal fate. You may never encounter it again in your lifetime. You might not feel it now, but once you step onto the immortal ascension stairway, you'll realize what you've missed today. The ones who would suffer the most are those who have just entered the immortal ascension stairway. They have to watch the opportunity slip away before their eyes. Xie Dongnan laughed heartily and then walked toward the immortal road. A young woman felt uneasy as she watched Xie Dongnan leave. What if senior brother ascends to immortality and abandons us? The others were speechless. Among them, Feng Wei looked in the direction of the immortal road, where the Heavenly Note sect was located. When had his sect become so extraordinary? Chapter 731, Demoness. If you were the one in love with the charm goddess Jiang Hao stood on a mountaintop and sensed the changes around him. He could feel that this was a remarkable opportunity, far from a regular advancement. This kind of thing was rare and elusive. Shang'an had shown it to him personally. He's so confident. Can I also become an immortal? Jiang Hao shook his head helplessly and activated his divine power, the clear and pure heart. After that, he began to study the immortal road. Although it had no immediate use for him, it would be valuable in the future. Immortality was still far from his grasp, and he couldn't comprehend it yet, but by recording these experiences, he would have numerous insights when he reached that realm. In an instant, he immersed himself in it and saw things that were beyond his expectations and too mysterious to articulate. He couldn't understand it, but he could remember it. At that moment, 4 beams of light rose into the sky alongside Shang, and Jiang Hao didn't see it, and even if he had, he wouldn't understand, as this realm was as dark as the night to him. It showed him nothing. He couldn't understand or even witness it clearly. At this time, the entire Heavenly Note sect was bathed in the sage's light, and many people felt enlightened. Han Ming, in particular, experienced a sudden enlightenment. Outside, Qiao Yi asked, "Princess, are you all right?" The princess was crying. Large teardrops rolled down her cheeks. The optimistic Bai Zhu was deeply affected by the missed opportunity. Such a chance was slipping through her fingers, and no matter what she did, the opportunity wouldn't linger. What made her even more frustrated was that 4 people obtained the chance. Seeing others succeed was even more painful than losing it herself. For a moment, she regretted coming here. If she hadn't come, she wouldn't have to watch the opportunity slip through her fingertips. She finally calmed down after a while. Since we missed it, we can't have come in vain. At the very least, let's feel the immortal fate and solidify our cultivation. Qiao Yi breathed a sigh of relief. She was glad the princess had come to terms with it. Qiao Yi didn't understand what she had missed today. This wasn't an ordinary opportunity. There had only been 3 occurrences in recorded history of an immortal fate being invoked, and this was the 4th. She encountered it but missed it. No one else was as unfortunate as she was at this moment. After 3 days, Bai Zhu gazed at the sky as the immortal road was about to close. At the last moment, one of the people who had previously ascended seemed to be rejected by the immortal road and was suppressed. They fell back. They weren't harmed. The sage's light protected them. They failed. But why? Bai Zhu was astonished. The person was highly likely to succeed. Regardless of their realm or their foundation, they were exceptional. They weren't the first or the second among the 4. Both of them should have succeeded, so why did they fail? Inside the Heavenly Note sect, Mu Longyu knelt on the ground and expressed his gratitude to the heavens. If not for Shong'an, he would have been injured. "Are you all right?" Mi Lingyu ran over to him. "I'm fine. I got to set foot on the immortal road," Mu Longyu said. "But why did you fail?" Mi Lingyu also couldn't understand. Mu Longyu smiled wryly. Success or failure depends on fate. Their strength was still formidable. Once they returned to their sea region, they would join forces as the 12 heavenly kings. With one less king, the power of their alliance was weakened. Of course, within their respective domains, their strength was still outstanding. The fortune of a heavenly king was something many people desired, but with benefits came disadvantages. It was only natural. "I didn't expect to encounter such an opportunity," Mi Lingyu said as she gazed up at the sky. "Yeah. It's truly remarkable, and those 3 individuals are very fortunate." Mu Longyu sighed. "Who are they?" Mi Lingyu asked. There was Bai Zhi from the Heavenly Note sect, a disciple of the Mountain Seasword sect, and a disciple from the Clear Sky School, Mu Longyu said. He could sense that these people would find it challenging to take the final step, but with immortal fate, everything was different. Everyone could succeed. Jiang Hao sat cross-legged and imprinted the immortal markings into his memory through his understanding. Besides this, his mountain sea seal also improved and gained more power and sealing techniques. It became even more potent. When the immortal fate dissipated, he awakened from his meditation. It was nighttime, and the starry sky was shining brightly. The wind was calm, and the moon was clear. There were no beams of light rising into the sky and no colorful clouds of radiance. It all seemed like a beautiful dream. However, his body had indeed undergone changes. He had memorized the immortal road, which would make his path much easier in the future. Although his understanding wasn't solidified, and he might forget some of it, it would be enough. Even if he forgot, he wouldn't lose much. This was the reward Shong'an had given him. It's truly remarkable. It was just like a portion that was left aside just for him. If Shong'an were to give him the entire immortal fate, It would provide a complete immortal fate, nearly ensuring his success on the immortal road. This made him doubt whether the favor he had done for Shang was even worth so much in return. Indeed, it's quite remarkable, said a calm voice from behind him. Jiang Hao was startled and quickly turned around. He saw a red and white figure that had appeared suddenly. She sat on a chair. Where there had been no chairs before, a set of chairs had appeared, along with a tea set on the table. Greetings, Senior, Jiang Hao said respectfully. Hong Yuye placed the teacup on the table. Make some tea. Jiang Hao went to prepare the tea. However, when he took out the tea leaves, her icy gaze fell upon him and made his scalp tingle. He promptly changed to a more expensive tea, but the icy gaze was even more apparent. It wasn't until he took out the last batch of the red azure tea leaves that the cold gaze finally disappeared. Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He didn't dare to oppose her. Did Shang say anything to you? He asked me why I saved him and then thanked me, said Jiang Hao. Why did you save him? She asked. Because I wanted to. Did he blame you for not saving that charm goddess? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. He resents it a lot, but I am me, and he is him. He can be himself, but I have to make my own choice. He understands that. Hong Yuye looked at him intently. What about you? Would you be so understanding if it was you in his place? Senior, what are you saying? Jiang Hao didn't understand what exactly she was asking. Was it about gratitude or letting go? If you were in his place and were in love with a charm goddess. Let's say you wanted to free her, but Shang comes in the middle and saves your life but leaves the charm goddess behind. Would you be understanding toward him? She asked curiously. She had a steady aura as she stared at the person in front of her and waited for an answer. Chapter 732. What task did the Demoness assign him? Jiang Hao frowned at the question. After thinking for a while, he shook his head. I cannot answer that question. Why not? Hong Yuye asked. Because I cannot imagine myself liking the charm goddess, Jiang Hao said. In that case, imagine if it was someone you liked, said Hong Yuye. Jiang Hao thought for a moment but ultimately had no answer. With the GU poison inside him, he couldn't answer such questions. But he wouldn't let such a situation come to pass. Jiang Hao's silence didn't invite further questions from Hong Yuye. Soon, the tea was brewed, and its fragrance filled the air. Jiang Hao poured a cup for Hong Yuye and another for himself before sitting down. What are your thoughts on seeing such a genius? Hong Yuye asked. I've never thought that a person could shine so brightly, Jiang Hao said and sighed. In this world, there is no shortage of geniuses, nor of people who have potential. The world is vast, and there is always someone better. It's important not to be lazy or get riled up over trivial matters. Hong Yuye, who was about to drink her tea, was surprised. When you see someone so outstanding, your first thought is to be more cautious. Jiang Hao didn't understand her. Wasn't that the right way to think? Is there no part of you that wants to challenge them and prove yourself superior in your heart? Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. Why should he compete? Making a show was unnecessary. If someone were to envy him and interfere, it would only cause trouble. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. How old are you? I'm not young anymore, Jiang Hao said a little regretfully. When he said that, a cold sensation extended over him. 35, he said hurriedly. Hong Yuye put down her teacup and looked up at the sky. You don't have any aspirations. Don't you want to leave behind a brilliant legacy in the cultivation world? Jiang Hao took a sip of his tea and shook his head. Not everyone has to shine so brightly. Everybody has their own way. It's good enough. I don't have grand ambitions. This way of life is already the best for me. Hong Yuye looked at him intently. Jiang Hao continued to drink his tea. He drank every last bit so that it was worth the 10,000 spirit stones he had spent on this tea. Jiang Hao felt a change in his body. The imprints of the immortal road, which he couldn't remember before, were gradually solidifying. He didn't dare to think too much and focused on consolidating his cultivation. For some reason, these previously elusive ideas were unexpectedly becoming stable. When he woke up, the sky was getting brighter. The sun was about to rise. Standing on the edge of the cliff was a person. A gentle breeze tousled her long hair, and the hem of her robe swayed with the wind. Jiang Hao walked over to see what she was looking at. When he looked down, he saw a breathtaking forest. "Have you completed the task I assigned you?" Hong Yuye asked. "It's almost done," Jiang Hao said immediately. He didn't remember what the task was, but saying he was almost done was the best course of action. Hong Yuye turned to look at Jiang Hao and smiled. "How close is almost?" "It means we've received some information but need to confirm it," Jiang Hao said. "Information? What kind of information?" Hong Yuye asked. Jiang Hao racked his brain and tried to remember what task Hong Yuye had given him. Besides finding the person behind the secret stone tablet, he couldn't think of anything else. "Did you already buy the September spring?" Hong Yuye suddenly asked. Jiang Hao didn't understand why she was asking him that. Hadn't he already bought the September spring? After thinking for a moment, he sighed and said, "Yes, almost." Hong Yuye chuckled and then walked down the mountain. Shang-an initially didn't want to provide this opportunity. "Was it something you requested?" Hong Yuye asked. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "Why did you do that?" Hong Yuye asked. "To better help you with the flower. If it's just me, I would attract too much attention, and it might bring trouble," said Jiang Hao. "You're too cautious for your own good," Hong Yuye said. "Being cautious is always a good thing," Jiang Hao softly said. He didn't need to fight desperately or compete for opportunities, nor did he need to make enemies over them. That didn't suit him. Living a normal life was the best option for him now. The future was full of possibilities. Jiang Hao hesitated. Were Shang-an's actions impressive? Very impressive. Hong Yuye nodded. He did something that no one had ever thought of. He opened the immortal road and offered the hope of ascending to immortality to others. Those who ascend the immortal platform will have a 70% chance of success, provided they have enough foundation. Jiang Hao was astonished. A 70% chance of success was considered extremely high. In normal circumstances, even a 30% success rate was impressive. This showed just how significant this opportunity was. Will the one with the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment provide such an opportunity? He asked. Hong Yuye shook her head. She has the qualifications, but it's not guaranteed. Timing, location, and people are all crucial. Jiang Hao didn't expect it to be like this. It was indeed an incredibly rare opportunity. Those who missed out on it would truly regret it. Fortunately, he was still far from ascending to the immortal ascension platform. How many people succeeded this time? He asked. Because he had been immersed in meditation, he didn't know the details. Even if he had seen everything, he might not have understood it. 4 people obtained the opportunity, but only 3 of them succeeded. Hong Yuye walked slowly by the riverside, and Jiang Hao followed. They walked step by step and faced the gentle sunlight. Who succeeded, and who failed? Jiang Hao asked. Were there so many strong individuals in the Heavenly Note sect? He had no idea. The first to react was Baiji from your sect, the second was someone from the Mountain Seasword sect, the third was an overseas Heavenly King, and the fourth was from the Clear Sky School. Among these 4, the Heavenly King failed, Hong Yuye said. It seemed like there was nothing to worry about. Jiang Hao nodded. He realized that only one person from the Heavenly Note sect had obtained the opportunity. He didn't know the members of the Mountain Seasword sect, and he had no information about the Clear Sky School. However, he recognized quite a few of the overseas Heavenly Kings. Besides King Hai Luo, who else was here? Why did he fail? Jiang Hao asked. Was it because he lacked sufficient foundation? Hong Yuye shook her head. It was due to the Heavenly King's fortune. The fortune of the Heavenly Kings is shared among the 12 kings. Although it seems divided, it is a whole. When one of them tries to ascend, it's like facing the pressure of all 12. That's why he failed. Chapter 733. Ill luck can also target you. Heavenly King's fortune? Jiang Hao looked at the woman in front of him in surprise. He had always thought that the Heavenly King's fortune would bring significant benefits and hadn't considered it might affect ascension to higher realms. So why did so many people pursue Heavenly King's fortune if that was the case? You don't think it's a good thing? Hong Yuye asked. No. Jiang Hao shook his head. I think it has some major limitations. Heavenly King's fortune is a unique path. It's not a matter of limitation. It's just that an unconventional path always comes with a price, Hong Yuye said calmly. Any kind of gift comes with a price, Jiang Hao said in understanding. He just needed some time to think about it. Jiang Hao asked, if only one of the 12 Heavenly Kings remains, can they still ascend the immortal path? No. Hong Yuye shook her head. Why? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye did not answer immediately. It seemed she didn't want to answer such a direct question. Perhaps it was because one person still had to bear the pressure of all 12, or perhaps it was because if it wasn't all 12, ascension was simply impossible. After thinking for a while, Jiang Hao realized that it could be one of these two reasons. When they neared his wooden house, he asked, how can the 12 Heavenly Kings ascend now? Hong Yuye looked at the fish swimming in the river. To ascend, they need to break free from Heavenly King's fortune, or all 12 must encounter an extraordinary opportunity at the same time. Or, as she said this, she looked at Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao was puzzled. Or what? He asked. Hong Yuye said, or find someone who comprehends immortal intent, possesses Heavenly King's fortune, and seems to have detached themselves from the other Heavenly Kings. Provide this person with a unique opportunity to ascend, and they can carry the other 11 to ascend together. Hao was surprised by this revelation. He questioned why Dev would do this. Hong Yuye did not provide further explanation. Was it really worth it to do it this way? The complete opportunity for ascension was probably what Shong'an was going to offer him. If he shared this opportunity with others, more people might become immortals and advance to higher realms. That would be better for his sect if he decided to do it that way. So, was such an opportunity valuable? Jiang Hao thought of an idea. Even the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment was not a surefire way to obtain an ascension opportunity. It showed how rare and precious these opportunities were. The 12 Heavenly Kings' wish for ascension was not an easy task. Surprisingly, Heavenly King Hai Luo had a greater advantage, especially because he had detached himself from Heavenly King's fortune. Jiang Hao thought about the issue and remembered Hong Yuye's earlier explanation. Perhaps Hai Luo was looking to detach himself from the other Heavenly Kings and comprehend immortal intent. He was perplexed. Did the Heavenly Kings genuinely have such a wish? The appraisal did not provide him with an answer. However, there were some things that appraisal couldn't detect. Heavenly King Hai Luo's main reason was to save Maro Anxian, and that's what the appraisal revealed. Perhaps I should mention it to him and then appraise it again to be sure. He wasn't particularly concerned about this issue. If he had the time, he would check it out. Have you found anything useful lately? Hong Yuye asked on the way. Jiang Hao thought about it. The corpse realm flower is about to bloom. Hong Yuye didn't react to this news. Jiang Hao didn't know what to say, as he hadn't done much in the past 6 months. Apart from the information about the corpse realm flower, he had received no other information. Shong'an also didn't bring any useful information. There had been no gatherings at all. After a moment's pause, he said, because of Shong'an's matter, the gathering might happen soon. Whenever a major event occurred, Dan Yuan called for a gathering. According to Hong Yuye, these opportunities were extremely scarce, and those interested would pay attention. This would initiate trading. This meeting might provide an opportunity to ask about Miao Anxian, as he still had one reward left to use. He had visited Heavenly Steely Mountain and comprehended some things about it, but he didn't know if it would have any impact in the future. There were still many things to learn. Hong Yuye remained silent, and they arrived at the wooden house. They walked into the courtyard. Jiang Hao was a bit concerned. If the spirit beast and Xiao Li were inside, it wouldn't be good. Luckily, the two of them had gone somewhere else. Hong Yuye leaned down to caress the leaves at the side of the path and then requested a bowl of water to water the flower herself. Jiang Hao obliged. How long have you been growing the flower for? Hong Yuye asked. For more than 16 years, Jiang Hao said. He had obtained the seed when he was 18, and now he was 35. Upon careful thought, he realized he had been growing that particular flower for a long time, and he had known the woman in front of him for a long time as well. In these years, he felt he had been quite busy, and the first 18 years had seemed like a child's play. Likewise, the speed of his advancement was remarkably fast. In 17 years, he had advanced from the Foundation Establishment realm to the Return to Void realm. Now, he was in the late stage of the Return to Void realm. The advancement to other realms wouldn't take so long. However, with such rapid progress, it was easy to lose oneself. 17 years from Lifeblood Refinement realm to the Golden Core realm? Hong Yuye turned to look at the man behind her. Jiang Hao lowered his head. Yes. When you have time, you can look into the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl, said Hong Yuye. Why do you say that, senior? Jiang Hao asked. Hong Yuye got up and smiled charmingly. Sometimes it's not that you go after ill luck. It could be that unlucky things can also target you. Her figure gradually disappeared. A short while later, Jiang Hao frowned and muttered to himself, what did she mean by that? What's wrong with the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl? I'm targeted by unlucky things? That couldn't be possible. He didn't possess anything unusual. If he was targeted, it would have happened long ago. Is it because I went to the blood pool last time? If there was something unusual, it was that the blood pool saw the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. So did its presence trigger something and it locked onto him? But how could such a fierce creature target a person? Unless, Jiang Hao took out the sealed fragment of the Earth Extreme Heart-Devouring Pearl. It had a possibility of awakening the Earth Extreme Silent Pearl that had been dormant for eons. He began sensing the part that was still missing from the bead. By doing this, he might also become a target himself. The likelihood of this was high, so what should he do? After a moment of hesitation, Jiang Hao decided to find a suitable time to enter the blood pool and see if he could send the fragment out through the pool. He could also send it to Jiyu Jin. This way, he could free himself from any potential consequences, and he could keep an eye on it in the future. After all, it was in his vicinity, and he couldn't afford any issues. Jiang Hao continued to cultivate in the courtyard. He had gained some insights from Shang-An's ascension. His state of mind underwent significant changes, and he needed to immerse himself in it to continue comprehending it. Several days later, in mid-April, Jiang Hao felt the stone tablet vibrate. The gathering was scheduled to begin at midnight. After more than half a year, it was finally time. He had to decide whether to investigate the corpse realm. If he really did, he might find out what consequences the Steely's revelation would bring. It would also allow him to understand how Shang-An's ascension might affect the surroundings. Other than that, things seemed to be going well. There wasn't anything that required his attention, except for the attitude of the overseas people toward smiling San Sheng. Chapter 734, An Extra Person at the Gathering at Midnight. Jiang Hao entered the stone tablet right on time. As soon as he arrived, he was a little surprised. Unlike the previous times, the number of people had changed. Before, it was Gui, Liu, Xing, Senior Dan Yuan, and him. This time, there was an extra person. Her username was Zhong. She seemed different from Gui. She was more dignified and composed. He just glanced at her once. He had worked hard to build a mysterious identity, so he couldn't look around boldly. It seemed that the other person was also a little surprised to see him. Jiang Hao didn't know if this person had been there from the beginning or had just joined. He hadn't had time to check the stone tablet in the past few days, so he wasn't sure. After everyone gathered, they respectfully greeted Senior Dan Yuan. It seems that friend Zhong has come out of seclusion, Senior Dan Yuan said to Zhong with a smile. Thank you for your concern, Senior. This time, it went quite smoothly, Zhong said politely. Jiang Hao felt strange because the way she spoke seemed a bit formal. Gui was much more casual. She could ask anything, and the gathering was better off with her in it. He also realized that Zhong had been there all along, but she had been in seclusion for some years and had just come out. He had no idea what kind of person she was or which sect she belonged to. He decided to watch and see how things unfolded. It seemed that the other person was also curious about him but hadn't found the right time to speak. Do any of you have questions about your cultivation? Senior Dan Yuan asked the group. Senior, I have a question, Zhong said. In recent years, I've been reading about the sages and their writings in the book pavilion and found that some people entered the Tao through writing. It's quite unusual. Did they enter the Tao through insight, or was there some other power in the writings? If it's through insight, why did they write it down so specifically? If it's the latter, can I learn it? You cannot learn it. This book is not the same as that book. It was written with the power of mountains and rivers, and the words are rooted in profound Tao methods. To comprehend the heavens and the earth and understand the Tao patterns, one can walk this unique path, Senior Dan Yuan said. Is it impossible to learn because it doesn't exist anymore? Zhong asked. If it were in the past, it would indeed be difficult to answer, but now I can provide some insight, Senior Dan Yuan said. Someone once opened this path, and then it was closed. Why? Gui suddenly asked. Jiang Hao lowered his head. He had guessed the answer. Because it would affect all the clans, Senior Dan Yuan said. Others were puzzled but didn't ask further. This was no longer a matter of cultivation. Once there were no cultivation issues, Senior Dan Yuan turned to everyone. I've heard that there have been sightings of pages of the sage in the west. Have any of you heard about it? If you have information about the whereabouts of the pages, please inform me. Can we exchange them for snow god pills? Gui asked. In theory, perhaps not. But if you have the pages, then perhaps we can come to an understanding, said Dan Yuan. Gui was somewhat disappointed but not hopeless. I've heard some information from overseas. The people of the Astronomical Academy are searching for a certain great sage, which might be related to the pages of the sage, Liu said. The Bright Moon sect has a copy of the page, but it's of no use. It seems we need the actual pages. Each time the pages appear, they are unique in some way, Xing said. Jiang Hao didn't say anything because he had no idea what those pages were. This was a gathering with such a wide range of knowledge, and he couldn't contribute to the conversation. Being introverted was the best cover for him for now. At that point, Senior Dan Yuan said, I heard that there's a chance to achieve immortality. Do any of you have any information? Everyone was surprised. Immortality? Liu was quite curious. What kind of immortality is it? Opening the path to immortality, Senior Dan Yuan said. The immortal road. Everyone looked at each other. I've only heard of that happening just 3 times in historical records. The most recent one was when the human emperor broke through the immortal ascension platform. The previous 2 times couldn't be confirmed. They were thought to be just legends. It happened for the 4th time? Zhong was surprised. That's right. According to the records, it's not very difficult to achieve immortality when you encounter such opportunities, Xing said in awe. Such opportunities were extremely rare. It was not only a matter of the vastness of the world but also a matter that spanned eras. So, the fact that it appeared now made them all feel amazed. However, the more they talked, the sadder Gui became. I heard it happened in the southern region. Senior Dan Yuan looked at Jing and Gui. Jing remained indifferent, but Gui looked dejected. Gui said nothing, but the fact that she was here indicated that she knew something. So, everyone looked at her. It happened at the Heavenly Note sect. Gui sighed. Shongan broke through to the Immortal Ascension platform and opened the Immortal Road. She only mentioned the event, but she didn't say she had experienced it. She looked at Jing and the other 4. Since Jing was not there, did the others miss it too? She felt relieved. If Jing had obtained the opportunity, she would have cried. However, her words shocked the others. It happened in the Heavenly Note sect. Liu exclaimed. It was Shongan. Was that why he was traveling? The Clear Sky School seems generous. So that's it. It was no wonder the Clear Sky School had such a major commotion, said Xing. What happened? Gui asked. Jiang Hao also wanted to ask, but he found it hard to speak up. Fortunately, the gathering had Gui. Xing laughed. Just a couple of days ago, countless elders from the Clear Sky School, from the sect master down to the ordinary elders, were all frustrated and angry. At first, I didn't understand what had happened, but now it seems it was because Shongan had opened the immortal road. It's no wonder those people were frustrated. Back then, Shongan's master practically begged them to accept his talented disciple, but they refused. Now, Shongan has achieved a breakthrough and opened the path to immortality. They could have been the master to such an outstanding disciple, but they had refused. Shongan was a legendary figure. Clearly, the Clear Sky School's elders suffered a blow. Jiang Hao sighed. Back then, Shongan's master had barged into the Clear Sky School and begged them to accept Shongan as their disciple, but they had rejected him. Now, Shongan had opened the immortal road. Many people were regretful for not accepting him before. Zhong listened attentively. She felt confused. Besides the path to immortality, she couldn't understand anything else. Shongan and the events at Clear Sky School were all unknown to her. However, she noticed that Jing, who was beside her, also couldn't understand, so it seemed that he had limited knowledge too. If a person was silent all the way, it only meant they didn't know anything. She thought that Jing wasn't as exceptional as she had thought. To learn more about the situation, she needed to wait and see. Since there was a new person, it was important to understand his value and his abilities. Of course, it was also essential to showcase her own value, as it would make negotiations smoother. However, the top priority was to figure out what had happened with Shongan. She had been in seclusion for over a decade, but it felt like a century had passed outside. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories,